got in a bit of a tiff on Twitter, as I do, you know, because I was being a little bit of a weenie, as I do, you know. So, yes, we're going to talk a little bit about logical fallacies. As you guys may have known, if you've been watching the last couple of streams that we've had, I've talked about potentially looking at the old content that I did on a show called Caffeine Corner, which is long since defunct, and kind of readdressing and re-looking at some of those, some of the topics that were covered. And one of the things that we covered were fallacies. So I was thinking about doing like a fallacy a day, and then this one just happened to drop into my lap. So why don't we take a look at it? So if you guys could do me a favor, I'm going to read the tweet out for you, and you guys name that fallacy. And that is the name of the game. Kip Davis, doctor, said, yes, the eminently qualified youth pastor, apologist, Mike Winger, is back you know who Mike Winger is back to weigh in on everything that actual scholars have gotten wrong about the Bible. It is unfortunate that he has stopped speaking to anyone outside of his protective bubble. So this person named Lucius said, why do atheists and progressive Christians assume that a PhD equal can't be wrong, hold/select views that fits their bias, or gasp, lie or deceive? Not to believe and disagree is one thing, but there are also PhDs, scholars, and intelligent church fathers before PhDs were a thing. I mean, Dr. Josh at the bottom there is kinda giving it away. And progressive Christians in quotes. Little bit of implying that no true Scotsman, only real Christians. What fallacy do you think Lucius is trying to call out? Feline's got it. Authoritative fallacy. The fallacy of argument of authority. So, what do we agree with about this statement? I mean, I would agree that PhDs and scholars can lie, they can misrepresent things, they could step out of their field and speak on things that they know nothing about. As somebody who is not exactly traditionally educated, that doesn't invalidate what somebody has to say, right? And we'll get into that. I had responded with, I am the PhD fart hard dude on the platform right now. I'm clearly just being a weenie. But this guy kind of got mad about it. I don't think he liked me not taking PhDs seriously in his post about not taking PhDs seriously. If you're too good for fart jokes, you're the worst type of person. Just trying to say PhDs aren't infallible or right just because appeal to authority vis-a-vis credentialism. Of course, Dr. Josh jumps on that because Dr. Josh is 100% correct, and so were you guys. Can you point out where Dr. Kip did that? So Mike Winger, let's look at the original, right? Mike Winger says, rumor that the Bible has been translated too much, or that it was arbitrarily or even conspiratorially selected, have been greatly exaggerated. I finally found it. After 15 years, the historical truth, the Bible hasn't really been changed. Nyeh. Dr. Kip. Yes. The eminently qualified youth pastor / apologist Mike Winger is back to weigh in on everything that actual scholars have got wrong about the Bible. It is unfortunate that he has stopped speaking to anyone outside his protective bubble. So, is Dr. Kip doing the appeal to authority fallacy, or dismiss it, or the genetic fallacy, which is what this person is actually trying to accuse him of? So let's take a look at what the actual appeal to authority is. This is the Writer Center for University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And we do have what are logical fallacies, but we do have, I just loved the first sentence because I really feel like you don't even need more than this. It says, fallacies are defects that weaken an argument. That's pretty straightforward. Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Researchers disagree on how to define the term fallacy, focusing just on fallacies in a sense of A above, namely fallacies of argumentation. Some researchers define fallacies as an argument that is deductively invalid or that has very little inductive strength. Because examples of false dilemma, inconsistent premise, and begging the question are valid arguments in this sense, this definition misses some standard fallacies. Other researchers say a fallacy is a mistake in an argument that arises from something other than merely false premises, but the false dilemma fallacy is due to false premises. Still, other researchers define a fallacy as an argument that is not good. I think calling it a defect in your argument is a pretty solid way to define it. So there's a little bit of back and forth about like how to define them in a way that encompasses all the fallacies. But mostly it's just something that it's something that weakens your argument or makes your argument fall flat because it doesn't follow, essentially. So needless to say, there are a lot of fallacies. Now, will we go through every single one of these? Maybe one day. Maybe one day we'll get through every single one of these. For now, we're going to look at argument from authority. Appeal to authority. You appeal to authority if you back up your reasoning by saying that it is supported by what some authority says on the subject. Most reasoning of this kind is not fallacious, and much of our knowledge properly comes from listening to authorities. However, appealing to authority as a reason to believe something is fallacious whenever the authority appealed to is not really an authority in this particular subject, when the authority cannot be trusted to tell the truth, when the authorities disagree on the subject, except for occasional lone wolf, when the reasoner misquotes the authority, and so forth. Although spotting a fallacious appeal to authority often requires some background knowledge about the subject or the authority, in brief, it can be said that it is fallacious to accept the words of a supposed authority when we should be suspicious of the authority's words. Layman's as simple terms as possible. Not every appeal to authority is fallacious. In fact, most of the time, it is not. So, if I cite somebody who is, no reason to not trust them, and I cite somebody properly and I cite their work, right? This person has worked in this field, here's their paper that explains this is why I think that, there's my argument. That's an appropriate appeal to authority. I've went to a professional, I went and looked what the professional had to say on the matter, and I took and cited their research properly. What would an example be of an appeal to authority? What I'm saying is correct because that guy said so, and that guy has a PhD in it. So if you're too lazy, or if you don't actually have a proper source, just that this person said so, this person said so would be the fallacious version, right? Because you have to make sure the source that you're citing is accurate, make sure that that's what they've actually said, make sure that yada yada yada. A proper citation is not an appeal to authorities. Oh, if you guys would like to see, here's the technicality. Moon is covered with dust because the president of our neighborhood association said so. This is a fallacious appeal to authority because, although the president is an authority on many neighborhood matters, you are given no reason to believe the president is an authority on the composition of the moon. It would be a better appeal to some astronomer or a geologist. A TV commercial that gives you a testimonial of a famous film star who wears a Wilson's watch and that suggests you too should wear that brand of watch is using a fallacious appeal to authority. The film star is an authority on how to act, not which watch is best for you. Is Dr. Kip fallaciously dismissing Mike Winger's point based on him appealing to authority? Or is Dr. Kip simply pointing out that Mike Winger is A, not to be trusted, and B, is not an authority on the topic? Because pointing those things out and saying, well, one of the reasons why is that he's not a scholar in any of these things, and that Mike Winger has stopped speaking to anyone outside of his bubble, thus meaning his opinion can't be trusted because it is formulated within an echo chamber. So I would say no. I would say no, Dr. Kipp is not committing this fallacy. Is Dr. Kipp giving us a genetic fallacy? He's dismissing it because it's Mike Winger. I would also say no. Absolutely not. And the reason is because Dr. Kipp gave reasoning. He said Mike Winger ought not to be trusted because he's not talking to anybody outside of his bubble, and he's not a scholar of this field. That's not just ignoring him because it's Mike. If he said, oh, who cares about this? It's Mike. And then just... So no, he hasn't committed the genetic fallacy either, which hopefully we'll cover more in depth on another day. Argumentation is a branch of philosophy, and it has to do with the rhetoric of how you present it, right? It's really not very complicated, and this is one of the reasons I'm like, philosophy is stupid. If you know what you're doing and you pay attention, you don't need a book to teach you this stuff. It's just just having a book and having the words to express these things simply makes it easier to communicate to other people why a fallacy is a fallacy and what the fallacy is. You can recognize a fallacy. Most of you can probably already recognize the majority of fallacies. You just don't know what their names are or how to explain or express it in a cohesive way. And all that is just a matter of practice. It's just a matter of memorization. I don't need to know it's called an argument from authority. All I need to know is that you're pulling, just because that guy said so isn't good enough, no matter who they are, right? And I think a lot of times people can figure that one out on their own. All of these things are just tools to help you communicate better, right? Because if I say you're wrong and that's fallacious, but I can't explain why or how, you're gonna have a hard time and you just end up in a pissing contest with, fart hard dude. And you're gonna lose to fart hard dude, which is what happens to this guy right here.